Thanks, Petra. Good morning, everyone. Petra, thanks for the interaction. And I'm looking forward to spend the next 1 hour with everyone in this webinar where we will just focus on about 10 takeaways on evaluation from the Evaluation and Stakeholder Engagement series. In the course of this 1 hour, I will be using slides to support our coverage of these 10 takeaways, which were part of this series that started early in the year. I had the pleasure of engaging many of you in a series of conversations about evaluation and stakeholder engagement in the context of the organizational standards. What's different about this webinar today, I'll be doing most of the talking and help you navigate on the key evaluation resources that you can find in the OrgWise portal. The whole idea of this session is to be able to identify these resources and figure out how you could utilize them in your work. So you will see me using the slides and also going back to the actual OrgWise portal to be able to share with you some of the key takeaways on evaluation. I will also be addressing, as Petra indicated, any questions or comments that you might have that would come to me through the chat menu possibility here on the webinar. Over so many years working in the sector, myself, and then working for United Way Toronto, one of the largest nonprofit sector funders in the country, I have learned a lot about evaluation, both from a perspective of accountability, but also from the value of learning. At United Way, I have led the development of the evaluation capacity building program, assisted as part of the senior team in the conceptualization, development, implementation of many evaluation-related activities, programs. As part of this role, I've launched an evaluation capacity building course at George Brown College as part of the second-year worker program. So I'm really fascinated and interested in the field of evaluation, but also from a perspective of opening my eyes and looking at what is out there beyond the usual discourse on evaluation. So today, you will see me sharing with you 10 important takeaways that I feel strongly you need to start paying attention, and perhaps you already are, but this is an opportunity to put a little bit of emphasis on this key areas that I want to share with you. So my first slide is an overall roadmap for evaluation, which kind of is a visual that will help encapsulate all the different pieces that I'm going to share with you today. So the first important takeaway in evaluation from this series is please focus on the whole picture. By that I mean that, as you can see in this attempt of a road map going towards organizational and program effectiveness, two important but different concepts. One is the box, the organization. Another is an element within the box, a program. So programs and services, one element in the picture, the organization itself, the organization in collaboration with others. In this roadmap, one of the important things that we can learn when we focus on the whole picture is that program evaluation is actually part of an overall organizational evaluation. It's a subset of a larger set around evaluation of organizational effectiveness. It cannot stand on its own without being linked, for example, to the question of leadership, to the need of really having different approaches in a toolbox of evaluation, to the organized readiness. It cannot be divorced or separated from program planning and development, that it's part of a cycle of really understanding effective program development and planning. And it's pretty much influenced by what happens in terms of culture at the organizational level. So the first important piece is, let us focus on the whole picture. That program effectiveness that you can understand by conducting a program evaluation is part and parcel of organizational effectiveness, which has other important elements of management, governance systems, relationships, the whole facets that happen around an organization. Later on, we'll be talking a little bit about how leadership is so important, this whole question of program evaluation. One of the great things that I have learned over the years is that evaluation is actually the business of everyone in an organization, starting from the board of directors all the way to frontline staff. It cannot be relegated or reduced to the responsibility of one or two individuals at the services and the programs level. There is an entire culture, there is an entire leadership role, toolbox that requires the whole organization to embrace and take evaluation seriously. I want to introduce to you, and these are, when you go on OrgWise, these are actual resources that I have utilized in the series around evaluation and stakeholder engagement. You'll actually find the resources that I'm referring in this webinar in OrgWise. So, for example, we had a good discussion about the 4 essentials of evaluation, and the 4 essentials for evaluation, not surprisingly, include the element of leadership, planning, organizing, and sharing. So let's look at the second takeaway, which is when you lead in the context of evaluation, what are some of the key questions that you can ask? For example, to what extent does my board and my colleagues in the organization recognize and uphold evaluation as an organization? Is evaluation actually a priority in the organization? So it's a question of leading. How can my agency's culture and processes be strengthened to better support and sustain evaluation for learning? Again, the concept of culture, but also supporting and sustaining evaluation for learning. Earlier on, I was saying that 2 perspectives around evaluation is one of accountability and one of learning. Traditionally, the sector has looked and been worried by the accountability side because funders require accountability, but where we are, increasingly there is an appreciation that we must strike a balance between accountability and learning. Later on, I will be talking about evaluation capacity building, which is an area that will help you actually strike a balance between accountability and learning, but that culture is so central to this. And then again, within the context of leadership, is the question of to what extent is evaluation a driver of changes in our practice and priorities, and how is it integrated into the day-to-day work within the organization. The third important takeaway is the question of planning. Again, there are some central questions that one can ask, and these have to do into the question of, what is that we need to know and why. The question of what and what and why to know. And obviously, within this context, it's important to plan by starting to build a shared vision with board staff and partners around what we want to know and why do we want to know. So shared vision is so important. Then there is the important piece, and this is the relationship between programs and the organization. program effectiveness and organizational effectiveness, what's our plan actually to connect evaluation activities to the broader mission and goals of our organization? Program evaluation doesn't exist in a silo or in isolation. It's part and parcel of organizational effectiveness. There must be a sense-making, a plan that connects the two. Then again, one of the challenges in an evaluation is that, sometimes we try to use in isolation tools and methods that make it easier for us to understand the relationship between cause and effect or program elements in a linear way. Often the issues that we deal in the sector, in communities, in cities, are complex in nature. We work with partners, and we must ensure that we are addressing the full range of factors affecting progress of our programs and of our organization. So this requires actually a good planning in terms of linking the complexity of the issues to addressing the various factors that impinge on complexity. The number 4 takeaway is our ability to organize. Again, if you go back to the resources that I have on OrgWise related to these 4 essentials, what I'm sharing with you here are the key question highlights, but you could also see there some activities that you can do around organizing, planning, all the different elements of that are important for evaluation. So again, a reminder that you can find more details when you visit the resource in OrgWise. And all the evaluation resources in OrgWise around evaluation and stakeholder engagement that I have put there, they are accessible under forums, and I have intentionally titled the resources as key resources, and then you'll see the title of each of the different resources that you have. So in terms of organizing, earlier on we're talking about what do we know and why. Now we're talking about what do we need to measure and why. Because often there is a tendency to just measure without really understanding how are we going to use that. So what and why to measure. And what are some of the things that we need to identify in terms of better measures or outcomes, and do it in such a way that we select those better outcome measures that are useful and they don't necessarily overburden our staff. That's, again, another big lesson for me is that we tend to spend a lot of time collecting data that we don't utilize. This is partly, I think, a challenge both for funders and the sector agencies. But if we plan properly and organize ourselves properly, then we identify the measures that we need, the data that we need to collect, without unnecessarily creating a burden for staff. I think when we organize well, we'll realize that the burden we are currently placing on our staff to meet funder requirements will require us to actually be intentional about, reducing those or lightening those burdens. And we can do that by building staff capacity in handling this. Yeah. So don't push your staff or don't put yourself as a staff to meet funder requirements as a priority. If you do your program planning development and you serve your clients and you implement your programs and services effectively, then meeting funder requirements becomes a default, or happens because you're doing evaluation by striking a balance between accountability and learning, but primarily focusing on the quality of services for your clients and program participants. The other thing is, like, we often reinvent the wheel when we do evaluation in the sector. We need to look at how can we use the systems and infrastructure that we have at the moment for learning. How can we use our team meetings? How can we use our existing templates, our Excel sheets, whatever we have, without necessarily going for the next big system or new practice that we want to introduce. So for that to happen, I think organization is important. Another important element or essential for evaluation is the need to share. And here again, some of the key questions to ask is, how do I engage staff and others in our evaluation work? Yeah, but who do we need to engage, and how often, and in what way? So I think sharing affords us the opportunity for enhancing our learning, but also seeking critical feedback on what we're doing. So I think in the culture of evaluation, it's very important to put sharing as central there. Identifying who and how often that you want to share. I think it's important to look at the whole question of alignment in terms of our own interests in evaluation and measurement. And I think both, internally with our staff, but also with our stakeholders, such as our partner agencies, our funders, and so on. Alignment is important for a couple of reasons. One is an important validation, if you want, of the work that you're doing against those that you work closely with, because you were able to seek critical feedback around the work that you're doing. The other thing is, like, it will help you not to reinvent the wheel. When there are existing tools and resources that your partners or your funders or others have in the sector, by working closely with others in the area of evaluation, you're actually supporting in building your own capacity. So alignment could be beneficial to you as an organization. And obviously, it comes with sharing. Another important point in evaluation is this notion of sharing deliberately in the public, yeah, and sharing what we're learning in ways that invite others to engage with us. Sometimes we wait until an evaluation report is finalized, but we don't need to do that. We can always, engage in a deliberate culture of sharing as we learn new things from our programs that we run, especially if our programs are multi-year programs. I think we can always learn milestones and new things that are emerging, and that allows further engagement that could be beneficial to us. The sixth takeaway point for me is it's very important that you diversify your evaluation toolbox. Later on we'll talk about the value of triangulation, but for now it's important to really be open to different ways of doing evaluation. So many years ago, more than 12 years now, when outcome evaluation in the form of logic models was introduced, at least here in Toronto, there was a huge focus on logic models. Since then, I have seen the sector and funders being gradually open to the notion that there are other ways of doing evaluation. So make sure that at the agency level, whether you are at the front line, mid-level, or at the senior level, or even at the governance level, make sure that your organization is equipped with a diversified toolbox for evaluation. The way that you can do that is by providing opportunities for capacity building internally. You can do it yourself or in collaboration with others, or sometimes with the support of your funders, to really look at different approaches to evaluation. The value of doing that is, like, you can learn that certain types of programs and activities lend themselves to be better evaluated by a particular approach to evaluation. For example, you will find in org-wise resources that I have put around the theory of change, which is a different approach than logic models. Sometimes people confuse the two. Some prefer to equate the two, but from my own practice and purpose, I've always seen them differently. There are a lot of similarities, but a theory of change for a program of yours or an initiative of yours will allow you actually to question the assumptions that you have, the theoretical assumptions that you have about how change happens. What are some of the enabling conditions that you have to have in place to really effect the change that you want to see through the program? For example, in a local neighborhood, if you don't have all the conditions in place to address poverty, including understanding your locus of control for poverty, what other systemic enablers you are putting in place to address poverty, then you can just run a program and service realizing that you are addressing poverty, only to find out that you can't actually do that. So a theory of change is so important. A logic model is a simpler version of showing the relationship of program elements from simple inputs to outputs, activities, short to medium term and long term indicators, all the way to results, and it's an effective management tool. And so it's slightly different from a theory of change. Another good development in the area of evaluation is the introduction of results-based accountability, which in a moment I'll talk more about, but Mark Friedman has introduced this, and I find this a good addition, if you want, to the toolbox of evaluation. And there are situations under which you can use this. It's simpler to understand and connect your staff and your stakeholders in terms of RD. Developmental evaluation is another approach that you can take. Again, there is a primer on developmental evaluation that you can find on OrgWise, and so on. So there are different examples. The whole point here, don't reduce yourself, corner yourself to just using one evaluation approach. It's so important to diversify your approaches. I was talking earlier on about results-based accountability. In results-based accountability, there are three key questions that you ask yourself, and you find more details in the resource in OrgWise. You're looking at effort, and you're looking at effect. Two simple concepts, yeah. And effort allows you to talk about quantity and quality. For example, how much did we do in terms of the program? How well did we do it in terms of quality? And then going to the second important element, which is the effect. Is anyone better off because of the effort that we have done? And you can simply measure this by looking at the number of people that are better off, or the percentage of participants in a program that better off. So again, here's the value of trying to be open to different approaches to evaluation. Earlier I mentioned triangulation. Again, another critical takeaway is that you need to be able to use different methods of evaluation to be able to do your work around evaluation. For example, you can use more than one tool, whether it's a logic model tool, or whether it's a survey instrument, or different approaches to collect data. But you can get different perspectives on the same question. What you're changing here are different tools. Or you can allow multiple streams of information obtained by collecting different kinds of data about the same subject. So here you collect different data about the same subject. Or you can ask different staff or various staff to actually complete the same task, so you can compare the results. Yeah. Or you can use multiple perspectives to analyze information. So the whole idea of triangulation is to allow yourself to approach an evaluation question or a subject or a program effectiveness question from different angles. As much as you're diversifying your toolbox in terms of using different approaches to evaluation, different types of evaluation, here you're allowing yourself to use different methods and triangulate and check the results from different angles. Very important to do that. I want to talk to you about evaluation capacity. This is the ability of staff and organizations to do evaluation in simple terms. Yeah. Because evaluation is a systematic enterprise or undertaking, it requires a certain set of skills. Yeah. So there are 5 important skills, and again you can find the entire resource here on OrgWise from the Brunner Foundation. It's a small but effective foundation in Rochester, New York, that has done a lot of work to advance the concept of building a culture of evaluative thinking and evaluation. So there are 5 important things that, in terms of skills, that you need to have at your agency level when you think about evaluation capacity building or building the capacity for doing effective evaluation. You must ask questions of substance. And again, going back to those 4 essentials for evaluation, you must know what you're asking and why you're asking. You must know what you're measuring and why you're measuring. And that starts by really asking questions of substance. The second important skill is the ability to determine what data you need to answer specific questions. So questions of substance, the data to allow you to answer those questions. And then determination of data is different from collecting data using appropriate strategies. So the whole area of data collection is important, pause or stop that you need to do to really think about how do you, what methods do you use to collect data for the types of questions that you need to answer. And then the whole analysis of data is important, including summarizing the findings. And the most important thing, which allows you to answer the question evaluation to what end and or for what purpose, is your ability to use effectively your findings. So 5 important skills that you can build at the agency level through evaluation capacity building. So this takes me to the 8 takeaway in terms of evaluation capacity building. So organizations or agencies with high evaluative capacity actually have the following attributes that I have listed there. They use the skills that I mentioned in the previous slide in programs, and notice the capital and organizational work. So you're not limiting yourself to program evaluation. You're looking at the entire box. You're looking at the entire organization. So if you have a high evaluative capacity at your level, to your organization, you're looking both at programs and your organization, because both they are interrelated. Organizations have the ability to frame questions which need to be asked and can be answered with data. So the whole ability of framing effective questions. You have staff at different levels of the organization that have and hone continually their evaluation skills. There are staff who use evaluation skills to collect and analyze data. So notice here, not only you have staff that have the evaluation skills, but also use evaluation skills to collect and analyze data. There's a clear plan of what to do with the information that has been collected. One of the challenges in our sector is like we collect a lot of data. We generate a lot of reports without really having clarity about how we're going to utilize them. Organizations, again, with high evaluative capacity have the capacity to actually use the data to make decisions. It's all about change. It's all about enhancement, improvement. And it's so important to make decisions. You have to allow data to allow you to make effective decisions. And you have to be able to do this in a timely way. So many organizations, and I dare to say it's funders, they have evaluation reports, in their shelves without allowing them to breathe life, so to speak. So it's very important that we do this in a timely way in terms of really effecting change through the data-driven decision making. Now, I want to shift a little bit your interest in terms of understanding this model, which is a model that has helped me to really provide leadership, this whole concept of learning effectiveness. I've always advocated that it's not the lack of training and learning opportunities in the sector that's a challenge. It's the inability of us to access existing resources in a way that allows us to use them, and having a culture at the agency level that makes effective use of these resources. So after doing for so many years, leading significant level of training in all areas of organizational effectiveness, including evaluation, I have learned that training alone doesn't cut it. So training alone, it cannot change your programs and services, your relevance and effectiveness in the sector, in the community. So one of the things I have done was actually go to the States in Virginia and meet this chap, Kirkpatrick, who has introduced this simple model of training effectiveness or learning effectiveness. Why is this important and relevant, and why I'm bringing it to you? I'm bringing it to your attention because in building evaluation capacity at the agency level, you really need to understand how the acquisition of knowledge, skills, attitudes translates into behavior change. So in this model, you will see there are 4 levels. The level 1 is reaction, level 2 is learning, level 3 is behavior, level 4 are results. So when you go through training, one of the things that happens that you actually, at level 1, you're reacting to the training or to the new knowledge that's coming to your neck of the wood, so to speak. You're engaging, there is, relevance to what you're hearing, there is, satisfaction and happiness at that level. So you go to training or learning sessions, you react to that, and you fill your satisfaction survey. But there's no guarantee that what you were exposed to will translate in anything substantive back in the workplace. At level 2, learning, you actually start acquiring knowledge, skills. There's a bit of attitude change. You build confidence. You commit yourself to implementing what you have learned. What we wanted to do with all our enterprise of learning in the sector, in our agencies, is actually get our staff, our colleagues at level 3, where they can convert the learning, all the knowledge and skills that they have acquired, into behavior change. And behavior change will allow you actually to start implementing what you have learned. And Kirkpatrick, through this model and a lot of research, actually has established that you cannot have behavior that attend so much training out there, come back into their offices and agencies and convert this into something unless they have opportunities for reinforcement, unless there is monitoring, unless there is on-the-job learning, unless there are rewards and encouragement. So there's an important middle management, senior management role here in terms of monitoring and adjusting. So I learn about different approaches to evaluation. There's no point learning that if I go back to my workplace, I don't have opportunity to implement what I have learned. For me to change my behavior and actually apply some of this learning, I need to be able to get support from my agency, from my supervisors. I need to be able to get reinforcement, get the opportunity to share what I have learned with my colleagues. There's an entire translation, if you want, at level 3 that's so critical. The biggest challenge that we have in the sector, and dare I say, many funders, and I've also looked at some colleagues and evening programs that some of the colleges and universities run. Most of the learning actually happens between level 1 and level 2. There's significant front-end investment in terms of staff time and resources invested between level 1 and level 2. The most important piece actually starts at level 3, where when people go back after attending leadership programs or attending evaluation programs or governance programs, or whatever level of organizational effectiveness training and learning, they need to be able to be supported to implement their learning. But what you wanted to do is take them from level 3 to level 4, where they start showing results, because they have now changed their behavior. Their week looks different, their day-to-day work look different, because they are using tools, skills, knowledge in a way that they have not done before. And at level 3, they start showing results in terms of desired outcomes and identifying some key indicators for change. Now, again, I encourage you to go on kirkpatrickpartners.com to learn more about this model. I had the opportunity to spend a day in Virginia with Kirkpatrick to learn more about this, and I'll tell you, as a result of this, my whole outlook around learning and training has changed, and consequently I have introduced significant changes in the organizational capacity unit that I was leading for many years at United Way. So this took me to actually the number 9 takeaway when it comes to evaluation. We must, based on this model that I have shared with you, move beyond level 1. Again, a simple pyramid here to show you of the 4 levels: reaction, learning, behavior, results. We want to take our colleagues, our staff, ourselves, from just reacting to learning to actually learning the skills and the knowledge, building confidence, building some experience, but take that and transfer it to impact our work in the workplace. And from that, we want to impact the learning at our organization or agency. Very important. You need to be intentional in terms of moving people beyond level 1. Just sending people to attend training sessions is not enough. You need to be able to actually provide all sorts of incentives and supports to translate learning, training to results. I encourage you to actually take some time to learn more about this, because it's so critical and has application to many facets of your organizational and program effects. The last takeaway that I have for you is the question of leadership. Again, in one of our series around evaluation and stakeholder engagement, I brought the question of leadership. Over so many years, almost 20 years of working in the sector and for a major funder, one of the things that is obvious to me is that we need to move away from this notion of doing evaluation for funders. I have learned that the staff that I left in the sector and the staff that I built when I was working for a funder grapple with the same issues and challenges. There's an artificial boundary there that needs to be removed, because they need both to be partners in seeking solutions. Evaluation, as much as is about toolbox and processes and approaches and knowledge, it's also about relationship management. And those organizations that have been really effective in embedding a culture of evaluation are those organizations that have the leadership embracing evaluation as an organizational priority. Not starting at the executive director level, but starting at the board level. So one of the models of leadership that I've shared, I've done a lot of work in the area of leadership development over the years, is this leadership model developed by Otto Scharmer at MIT called Theory U. And I think this visual just summarizes this approach to leadership development and has relevance for evaluation. Otto Scharmer talks about 7 different stages that all of us go through our leadership journey if we address critical issues of change in our agencies, communities, and cities. And he talks about the most important leadership skill is holding the space. Holding the space for others, holding the space for your clients, holding the space for your partners, to be able for people to really discover themselves and suspend the inner voices of judgment, the inner voices of cynicism that they have. Allowing themselves to observe and redirect some of their energy, sense their environment, letting go of long-held beliefs around and fears about evaluation in this case, and creating a sense of presence at the agency level. When you intentionally build evaluation capacity at the agency, when you talk about the 4 levels of learning effectiveness or training effectiveness, when you talk about the openness to really look at different types of evaluation, you are creating a different presence at the agency level. So it's so critical as a senior leader especially, but leadership in this case applies at all levels. It's not a question of title, all the way from frontline to board and in between. There is a level of leadership that you can exercise. And for that you need to have an open mind, an open heart, and an open will to be able to say, yes, my funder needs outputs. Yes, I can get that, but I need to have an open mind to actually focus on the quality of programs and services for my clients, and recognize that by doing that, I will by default also meet the requirements or needs of my funder. And then I think Otto Scharmer talks about moving from the left side of letter U, which literally this is the letter U that you see, to the right side, where he talks about crystallizing a new story, prototyping a new experience, and performing on being at the highest levels of your leadership journey. I marry leadership to evaluation simply because I have learned that you cannot do justice by relegating the responsibility of evaluation to program staff, to frontline staff, to only 1 or 2 middle managers. You need to be able to embed evaluation within your organization as a culture. So if I go back and try to bring back the whole picture, have it here again. Earlier on, I started this series by talking about how important it is to link program services to organization, to collaboration, and to organizational and program effectiveness. The whole question of toolbox, leadership, culture is something that we discussed earlier on. So I will conclude my series on evaluation and the takeaways, and I'm looking at if there were any questions or comments made. Again, if you go on OrgWise, I'm doing it at the under webinars. If you can look at webinars, there is a series of webinars on evaluation and stakeholder engagement. Some of you might have attended this series. There's one particular webinar, the number 1, which looks at how you can leverage your best friend, in this case evaluation. It's a great webinar, so I encourage you to spend some time to look at it. When you go into forums in OrgWise, you will find, as I hinted earlier on, a huge array of evaluation resources that we were able to put there over the last few months when we launched this series. And in terms of the forums, as I said, I have purposely titled the key resources in a way that you can easily spot them. in some cases, in most cases, you will find the documents there, whether it's in PDF or other formats, and in some cases you will find links, website links that take you to the actual site where you can find resources. So I'm about to finish my webinar on the 10 takeaways, and the last comment that I have or a point to make is that evaluation is not an afterthought, whether it's at the organization level. We should always ask when we start our week Monday and end it Friday afternoon, what is that we have done to actually raise questions of substance about the work that we do. Often I have encouraged my staff over the years to actually block some time to reflection time about their work. I must confess that it's always been a challenge because people are so busy. Some of them have pushed it back and said, like, reflect time. Where can I find the time? The key question is, as senior leaders, I think we have the responsibility to encourage staff in the sector to actually take that time, that reflective time, to be able to ask questions of substance about the work that they do and the work that all of us are doing. You can always reach me at my email address, a.meles@yahoo.com, and feel free to contact me with any questions that you have in terms of the series itself, or any resources that you are utilizing or would like to utilize, and you might have some questions. I might reconnect again with some of you. There is one last session I'm doing with senior leaders in the sector, executive directors and senior leaders, about the responsibility of leadership when it comes to building a culture of learning, a culture of evaluation. There are distinct roles that senior leaders can play to actually facilitate building a culture of evaluation at the agency level and in the sector. So I might reconnect with some of you soon with the last session in this series. Thank you very much again for taking the time to listen to and participate to this webinar. I look forward to reconnect with you in another time. Thank you very much.